I thought there wasn't really anything like my game out there, and that was starting to become an issue for me. I mean, how many games do you know that are a cross between Balatro and 2 Point Hospital? But I needed to find something because my game had a problem. It just didn't feel right, and I couldn't figure out why. To figure it out, I needed some comps, which is a fancy publishing word for similar games to study. They're useful because you can look at how much they cost, how well they're selling, and who plays them and why. That last part's especially important. If I wanted to fix my game, I needed to know what kind of mechanics my audience liked so I could pack AAA Simulator full of them and have an OP, unreasonably addictive game. That's right, I was out there pandering as hard as Sony when they wanted to get in on the live service action, so they created Concord. And we all know that turned out amazing. Well, I have yet to find a game that's exactly like AAA Simulator, but I did finally manage to find something close. Super Tax City. It's more like if Balatro left 2 Point Hospital and started an affair with SimCity, but it was close enough for me. I decided to play the demo and see if I could steal any ideas. Basically, in Super Tax City, you get to choose which building to place in the grid of your town. Then little people go to work and produce tax revenue in those buildings. When time's up, you have to pay taxes to the mayor, and if you're not bankrupt, you get to move on. Exactly like real life, except you don't own a city. You're the little people working to pay taxes. The first thing I noticed about this game is that there's a lot of text. Even without looking, I can tell that this game was translated into English. The game's originally in Japanese, and all the words are technically correct, but I think it was directly translated word for word, and it's a little verbose as a result. This made me notice something. A lot of casino roguelikes are extremely conservative with their text. In fact, in Balatro, everything is as clear as it can be, with intuitive actions and direct causes and effects according to the rules. I decided that's important in a casino roguelike. Basically, the problem with roguelikes and deck builders is that each time the player makes a choice, they're choosing between things that have their own unique set of rules. Each item does a different thing, and the explanation can get as long as a magic card. Literally, because magic is the OG deck builder, this is a point of friction for the player. They need to interpret all these new rules and think about how they might interact, all while battling wall of text fatigue. I could apply this lesson to AAA Simulator. I wrote it down in my special notebook. I actually didn't write it down. I just wanted to signpost that progress was being made so the video feels satisfying for you. Anyway, all that text didn't destroy the experience of Super Tax City, but it definitely didn't help that there are just so freaking many different types of resources in the game. There's tokens, resources, items, facilities, coins, green dots, and time itself to keep track of. It's a lot. And then when I got to reading the rules, there were complex interactions going on and pictures in the text that I also needed to interpret. If I couldn't figure out the picture, I had to mouse over to interpret another wall of text with pictures in it, like some reading version of a hall of mirrors. Luck Be a Landlord does the same thing with the pictures, but I think it fits better for two reasons. First is because there are only two types of thing to keep track of: which slots to put on your wheels and how much money you have. Second is because Luck Be a Landlord has an absurdist aesthetic to it. You're paying your rent with a slot machine. You're putting things like cultists and eldritch horrors on your slots to get combos. Super Tax City has more of a cutesy vibe, which I still think really fits the mechanics, and a pixel art mayor charging exponentially increasing taxes which are due on a timeline of seconds absolutely fits that vibe. Cute little pictures in the descriptions almost fit that vibe too, but something about it just made my eyes glass over instead of trying to read the rules. But fortunately, I think the UI completely saved the day. When I got to playing, everything was visible on the screen at once, and animations kept track of all those resources for me. Little people went to work in my buildings and produced tax revenue, which floated to the top of the screen and tallied up in a nice, satisfying way. I could see combos and synergies in action, and my eyes could follow causes directly to their effects as they floated across the screen, culminating in a nice little happy payoff when numbers go up. I started to realize that's the key to a game like this. Incrementing numbers are good. It's lovely when they go up even faster. I mean, just ask Elon Musk. But the most satisfying thing was seeing my strategy in action, and knowing that my cleverness was the reason numbers go up. I built a chicken factory next to the gym so it produced more money for me. And I love money. Money good. Number go up good. So after playing Super Tax City, I realized there were some things I could do to improve AAA Simulator. While AAA Simulator is about hiring experts to get bonuses instead of building a city, the exponentially increasing tax goals of Super Tax City are similar to my own exponentially increasing profit goals. The first lesson was about writing. My game has a story that happens through events. Choices matter, but these events needed to serve the game's mechanics or they'd just be more reading. Instead of putting walls of text in the player's way, I needed to have their choices be a part of the number go up engine. Luckily, the amount I could write was already limited by my UI. Still, I made it a policy that no one thing should be more than a couple sentences long, be it ability descriptions, events, or choices. I also kept tweaking the information I showed to the player so they could quickly absorb information. I put in an expert portrait to show who's bringing up the events, and made events show how much they'd affect certain stats. These were great changes, but when I tested my game, something felt like it was missing. It felt like I was making uninformed choices and just hoping that my sales would get bigger each day. I thought it must be a player feedback problem. If the player had a better idea what was going on with the stats, they could make better choices. So I prototyped a panel where the player could see all the incoming and outgoing money. That didn't really solve it. So I prototyped another panel where the player could see what events were affecting their stats and by how much. Still, when I played, I rarely looked at those panels. They were helpful, and if I made them look a little better, I'm sure some players would appreciate them, but something was still missing. Something I understood all along, but was avoiding because I knew it was going to be complicated to implement. It all went back to Super Tax City. Even with all those resources, the game manages to avoid being a confusing mess. Then it hit me. All those resources fit on one screen. The animations tally up those resources and wealth for you to easily follow. I realized the same is true of Balatro or Luck Be a Landlord. Each round the score is neatly tallied up. Animations show which card or slot is producing points, following a predictable rhythm, and they all add up into a final score in a way anyone could follow. I realized it was finally time to tackle UI animations. I needed animations to tally up my stats and add to the final money, and I needed it to happen each day because AAA Simulator, like many Tycoon games, is measured in days. Days in fictional months because I didn't feel like coding in 28 days for February, but they're still days. And that meant I had to think about time. I needed to figure out how to fit all the animations in one day, which is a real-time second, no matter how many animations need to be done. And this took me like a whole day of thinking, but I finally cracked it. Now this might get a little technical, but I needed to use division. Yeah, I just divided the time for each animation by the number of animations I needed to do, and voila! Suddenly my experts were dancing in order. I added a little shake to each one. Then I coordinated the stat animations as they added up and combined into the final total. After hours of tweaking and trial and error, I got everything to work in a carefully choreographed sequence. And finally, the player could see exactly where the profits were coming from each day, and which experts were modifying them. It was beautiful. Now, there are still some things to polish. I need to test all the stats and juice everything up, but I also need to leave something for the next video. The point is, Super Tax City does some great things. Go buy it. It just came out and it's a satisfying play. City builder, good synergies, addictive. What more could you ask for? While you're on Steam, wishlist AAA Simulator. Maybe I'll tell you how juicy I could get the UI in the next video. Thanks for watching.